Welcome to the Karma Verdict. Let us get started with today's story. She said it while she was putting in her earrings. That's the part that still gets me. Not the sentence. The earrings. My ex texted me that he misses me, and I'm meeting him tonight to see what he wants. She announced it the way a person announces they're stopping for milk on the way home. No hesitation. No apology. Just an update on the evening schedule. I was standing in the bedroom doorway in the same shirt I'd worn for 11 hours, and I heard myself say two words I had never once said to her in 3 years. Find out. She laughed. What she didn't know was that my phone had already started buzzing in my pocket, and the woman on the other end of it was about to hand me every single thing Cora had been hiding for 4 months. To understand why I didn't yell, why I didn't beg, why I didn't stand in front of that door and make a scene, you have to understand what I was to her. I was the safe one. That isn't me being modest. Safe is the actual word she used. To my face, more than once. Sometimes as a compliment and sometimes not. I was the one with the steady engineering job and the boring calendar and the savings account. I was the one who never raised his voice. I remembered her mother's birthday. I knew which tea she wanted when she was sick. Cora was the opposite of every one of those things. She walked into a room and the temperature changed. People turned. She had the thing you can't learn. When we met, she was coming off a run of relationships that had left her thin and jumpy, and she told me, sitting on the hood of my car at 2 in the morning, that she was finished with chaos. She said she wanted somebody boring. She said it like a vow, so I gave her boring. I paid off $11,000 of her credit card debt in the first year so she could start clean. I carried a lease with her name on none of it. I sat through 2 career changes and a long stretch of unemployment where she cried in the shower so I wouldn't hear it. I drove 4 hours each way to sit in a hospital waiting room with her father. I was the floor she stood on. Here's the thing nobody warns you about being the floor. After a while, people stop noticing they're standing on you. You aren't a person anymore. You're infrastructure. You're the thing that holds the weight, and nobody thanks the beam in the ceiling. Julian was the one before me. The great catastrophe. For the first year, I knew about him only as a wound. She'd tell me things at night with the lights off, how he'd vanish for days and come back angry, how he took her phone, how he made her feel like a problem to be managed. I held her through those stories. I hated a man I had never met. I promised her she would never feel that small again, and I meant it more than I've ever meant anything. Then, somewhere in the back half of last year, the story changed shape. It happened slowly enough that I nearly missed it. He destroyed me, became we were intense. He made me feel small, became nobody has ever known me like that. His name started turning up in ordinary conversation. Sanded down. Harmless. Julian took me somewhere like this. Julian loved this song. Julian used to say that too. I asked her to stop. That's all I did. I didn't demand. I didn't threaten. I said calmly that I didn't want to keep hearing about the man who'd hurt her, that it felt like being asked to admire a knife. She told me I was insecure. She told me it was controlling to have a feeling about her past, and because I had spent 3 years being the reasonable one, I did the thing reasonable people do. I apologized for having a boundary, and I let it go. That was the mistake. Not the packing, not the locks. That, I believed that if I stayed steady enough, she'd eventually understand that steady was the prize. What I didn't understand, what took me 3 years to learn, is that certain people don't experience peace as peace. They experience it as silence. And silence makes them want to break something just to hear a sound. It all came due on a Tuesday. I got home a little after 6. Normally, the place smelled like whatever she'd half-started cooking and abandoned, and she'd be folded on the couch in my sweatshirt. That night, it smelled like a department store. Perfume, hairspray, heat coming off a curling iron. Every light in the apartment was on. She came out of the bathroom and stopped in the hallway to check herself in the mirror. And she was wearing the black dress. Not a black dress. The black dress, the one I'd bought her in the spring for our anniversary. The one she'd said was too nice to wear anywhere. Her hair was done. Her makeup was the kind that takes an hour and is supposed to look like it took none. You look incredible, I said. I set my keys in the bowl and felt something cold start up in my stomach. Are we going somewhere? She didn't turn around. She was fixing an earring. No, I'm going out. Okay. With who? She turned then, and what was on her face was not guilt. I want to be precise about that, because it's the entire story. It was not guilt. It was defiance. It was the face of somebody who has already run the argument in her head, already won it. and is now only waiting for you to lose your temper out loud so she can point at you and say, "See, Julian texted me this afternoon." The room went very quiet. "Why is Julian texting you?" "He's in a bad place." She picked her clutch up off the counter. "He and his girlfriend ended things. He sounded really dark. He said he misses me. He said I'm the only person who ever actually understood him." She delivered that last part like a line she'd practiced in the mirror. "So I'm meeting him for dinner. I need to see what he wants. I need to know he's okay." I stood there in my work clothes with my badge still clipped to my belt. "You're going to dinner with your ex-boyfriend because he told you he misses you. It's not a date. Fast, sharp, loaded, and ready. God, why do you have to make everything filthy? He's in crisis. I'm being a decent human being. You wouldn't get it because you don't have that kind of empathy." "Empathy," I said. "Cora, you spent an hour on your hair. You're wearing the dress I bought you. Nobody talks a friend off a ledge in heels. I dress up for myself." She sprayed perfume on her neck, my favorite one, the one I'd bought her. "Stop making this about you. It isn't about me. It's about respect." And I heard my own voice drop and flatten out, which is a thing it does maybe once every 5 years. "If you walk out that door tonight, you're telling me his feelings outrank ours. You're telling me a text message from a man who spent 2 years grinding you down is worth more than 3 years of me. You're being dramatic. It's pathetic, honestly." She checked her reflection one last time and headed for the door, and her heels on the floorboards sounded like a clock. "Cora." She stopped with her hand on the knob and sighed at the ceiling. "If you leave to meet him, don't expect this door to open when you get back." And she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A real one. Out of the chest. The laugh you give a child who announces he's running away from home. She looked around the apartment, my furniture, my lease, my rent. A whole life with her things scattered through it like she'd been set down there by a storm. Then she looked at me, the man who had never once told her no. "You're not going to do anything," she said, still smiling. "You love me too much. Stop trying to control me." "Go ahead," I said. "Find out." She said unbelievable to nobody in particular, and the door shut, and the lock rolled over with that small final sound, and I stood in the dark hallway and counted to 10 to see whether she'd turn around. Down the corridor, the elevator chimed. She was gone. I didn't cry. People always expect that part. So I'll be honest about it. I didn't throw anything. I stood in a very quiet apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, which was my own pulse slowing down. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a message request from a name I didn't know. Sasha. The little photo was a woman in a ski jacket squinting into the sun. The first line said, "You don't know me, and I'm sorry to do this to you on a weeknight, but I think we're both being played, and I've run out of patience." I sat down on the arm of the couch and read it twice. Sasha was Julian's girlfriend. Not his ex, his girlfriend. Present tense. They lived together. They'd had dinner with his mother that Sunday. Nobody had broken up with anybody. He had told Cora he was single and falling apart, and he had told Sasha he was covering a shift for a friend. Then she started sending screenshots, and my living room stopped being a living room and turned into a crime scene. 4 months. That's how far back they went. 4 months of messages, and Cora had started almost every single thread. Not him. Her. Late at night, from the bathroom, from the car, from the couch 6 feet away from me while I sat there watching a documentary and thinking we were fine. There were selfies. There were voice notes. There were 2 words she used for me over and over. And the words were comfortable and sexless. And then there was the one that took the floor out from under me. Sent at 1 in the afternoon that same day. "Cora to Julian. Text me around 4 and say you miss me. Say you've been in a bad place since the breakup. Make it sound urgent so I have a reason to come." She wrote her own excuse. She commissioned it. She stood in my kitchen 4 hours later and read it to me like scripture, and she watched my face while she did it. There was more. There's always more. A hotel confirmation from March, the weekend she'd told me was a work conference 2 states over. Booked in her name, charged to the card I had paid off for her. A second one from June, the weekend at the lake with her friends, and when Sasha sent me a photo of the 2 of them on that lake, I recognized the sweater Cora was wearing. Because I'd taken it out of the dryer for her the night before she left, I typed one message back to Sasha. "Thank you. I mean that. Whatever you need from me. Screenshots, dates, receipts, it's yours." And then I set the phone face down on the table. Here's what I noticed about myself in that moment, and it surprised me. There was no earthquake. There was no roaring in my ears. There was just a click, like a circuit breaker throwing in a basement, and then a silence that felt almost pleasant. 3 years of low-grade anxiety. Is she happy? Is she mad? Did I say the wrong thing? Should I check on her? All of it went off at once like a house losing power. I looked at the clock. It was 7:15. I went into the bedroom and pulled her suitcases down from the top of the closet, the expensive hard-shell ones she'd insisted we needed, because the old ones looked bad in airport photos. And I opened them on the bed and I started to pack. I want to be clear that I didn't rampage. I folded everything, every dress, every blouse, every pair of jeans, folded the way she liked, seam to seam. The way I'd folded them for 3 years. I wasn't going to hand her a story about the crazy man who destroyed her things. I wanted her to open those bags in some other room, in some other building, and find her whole life handled with the exact same care I'd handled it with the entire time, and to understand that the care had never been the problem. I cleared her half of the bathroom counter into a canvas tote. The serums, the 3 straighteners, the perfume. I took her coats off the hooks by the door. I emptied the drawer in the kitchen where she kept her chargers and her hair ties and her spare keys. And somewhere in the middle of it I stopped and stood in the bedroom holding a pair of her shoes. And I looked around and I understood something that hurt worse than the screenshots. Without her clutter, the room looked exactly like my room. The art was mine. The bed was mine. The rug, the lamps, the plants, the shelves, the lease, the rent, the security deposit, the electricity, the internet, all mine. She hadn't built a life with me. She had parked in mine. 3 years, and she hadn't put down a single root that couldn't be lifted out with 2 hands and a duffel bag. She had been a guest who stopped saying, "Thank you." The last thing I packed wasn't hers. In the back of the closet, inside a toolbox that she never opened because tools bored her, there was a small gray box. I'd bought it 7 weeks earlier. I'd taken a half-day off work to do it. There was a deposit sitting on a garden restaurant for the second Saturday in October, and there was a photo on my phone of the exact spot where I was going to ask her. And there was a folder in my email called The Good News that I hadn't shown anybody. I took the box out and looked at it for a while. Then I carried it to the entryway and set it on the console table by the door, closed, right beside the suitcases. I didn't leave a note. There wasn't a sentence I could write that would land as hard as that box sitting there with the lid down. Then I got practical, because grief can wait, and logistics can't. I called the bank and killed the card she was an authorized user on. I logged out of every screen and every service in the apartment and changed the passwords from my phone. I signed into the router and renamed the wireless network. The new password was 2 words. Find out. It was petty, and I don't apologize for it. I wanted her phone to fall off the network the second she stepped into the building, before she even reached our floor. I wanted the disconnection to reach her before I did. I emailed the building manager and asked him to deactivate the guest fob issued in her name. And I left a message with a locksmith for 8 the next morning. By 10 at night, I had 4 suitcases and 3 boxes lined up in the entryway in a neat row. Handles out, like a hotel lobby at checkout. Like a departure gate. I took the photograph of the 2 of us off the refrigerator, the one from the vineyard where she looks radiant, and I look like a man who is simply glad she's radiant, and I dropped it in the bin. I didn't tear it up. Tearing it up would have cost me something. Then I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, sat down in the leather chair she always said was too masculine for the room, and I turned off every light. I didn't text her. I didn't check her location. I didn't rehearse a speech. I sat in the dark with the city coming through the curtains and waited, and the strangest part of the whole night was that what I felt wasn't heartbreak. It was relief. It felt like putting down something heavy that I'd been carrying so long I'd stopped noticing the weight of it, and standing there afterward flexing my hands, amazed at how light they were. Dinner takes 90 minutes. 2 hours if the conversation is heavy. She came back at 10 minutes to 1. I heard the street door thud downstairs. I heard the elevator hum up through the wall. I didn't move, and I didn't turn on a light. The only brightness in the whole apartment came off the street lamps through the curtains, laying pale stripes across the floor. The key scraped at the lock. She missed twice. Then the door swung open, and hallway light poured across the entryway. And she stepped in loud and bright, the way people do when they're trying to steamroll a room before it can ask them a question. Why is it so dark in here? And then her shin hit the biggest suitcase, and she went down hard onto one knee. What the hell? She caught herself on the wall and kicked at the bag. What is all this junk by the door? Did you order something? She found the light switch. I watched her from the dark end of the hallway. I watched her eyes travel down. The stickers on the hard shell case. The tote bag with her serum standing up in it. The boxes, the coats folded on top. 4 suitcases and 3 boxes, handles out, in a neat row. She went completely still. I came out of the shadows and stopped about a body length away from her, and that was close enough for the smell to arrive. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't perfume. Wine gone stale, cigarette smoke, and under it a man's cologne, sharp and cheap and everywhere. It was in her hair. It was in the fabric of the dress. Her lipstick was gone except for a smear at the corner of her mouth. The sleek hair I'd watched her build for an hour was frizzed and knotted at the back of her neck. The dress was wrinkled across the hips. She hadn't gone to dinner. She'd been swimming in it. "You're still up," she said, and the brightness cracked. "Why are my bags packed?" "How was Julian?" I said. "He's a mess." Honestly, it was so sad. We just talked. She wouldn't look at the suitcases now. That's it. We just talked. And then we went to a bar after because he didn't want to be alone, and it was crowded. So if I smell like smoke, that's why. A crowded bar on a Tuesday. For 6 hours. We had a lot to talk about. The anger arrived right on schedule, because anger had always worked. He was in a dark place. I talked him down. I did an enormous amount of emotional labor tonight, and I come home to this. She swept an arm at the row of luggage. "What is this? Are you punishing me?" "Nothing happened tonight," I said. "Say it plainly." "Nothing happened." She looked me straight in the eye when she said it. It came out of her as easily as breathing. "Nothing happened. We're friends." "God, you are so paranoid." "Okay," I said. I picked my phone up off the console table, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward her. "What is that?" "Her name is Sasha," I said. "She's Julian's girlfriend." "Not his ex, his girlfriend. They live together. Nobody broke up with anybody. He told you he was single, and he told her he was covering a shift." Cora's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I scrolled. "She started 4 months ago," I said. "You started it, not him. There are 200 and some messages, and most of the first ones are yours. Here's the lake in June, the weekend with your friends. Here's the conference in March. That was a hotel and your name on the card I paid off. And here's my favorite one, because I think you should hear it out loud in your own words." I held the screen up level with her face. "Text me around 4 and say you miss me. Say you've been in a bad place since the breakup. Make it sound urgent so I have a reason to come." The silence in that entryway had a texture to it. I could hear the refrigerator running in the kitchen. "That's not," she said. "You don't understand what that." "You wrote your own excuse," I said. "Then you stood in my kitchen and read it to me like it was news. You watched my face while you did it. That's the part I'm never going to get over, Cora. Not him. That." Her eyes went to the console table then, the way eyes do when they're looking for anywhere else to land. And she saw the small gray box sitting beside the lamp. She knew instantly. You could see the exact second it hit her. She made a sound I hadn't heard from her before. "Is that?" Her hand came up over her mouth. "Were you?" "The second Saturday in October," I said. "There's a garden behind a restaurant on Ellis with lights strung over it. I've had the deposit down since June. You were at the lake with him the weekend I paid it. Please." She was crying now. Real crying. The kind that doesn't photograph well. "Please, I made a mistake. I'll block him. I'll delete everything. I'll do counseling. We can fix this. Just let me come inside and we can talk in the morning." "There's no morning," I said, and I opened the front door wide and held it. "Where am I supposed to go?" "It's 1 in the morning. My parents are in Arizona. Bridget isn't speaking to me. I have nowhere." "You spent 6 hours finding out what he wanted," I said. "So go find out the rest of it. I'm just helping you get closer to what you wanted." I rolled the first suitcase out into the corridor, then the second, then the boxes, one at a time, and I stacked them by the elevator while she stood in the doorway begging in a wrinkled dress that I'd paid for. She waited for it. I could see her waiting. She was waiting for the nice one to come back, for the floor to reappear under her feet at the last second the way it always had. 3 years of evidence said it would. It didn't. She grabbed my sleeve at the door. "You are going to regret this. You're going to wake up tomorrow and realize what you threw away, and don't think you can come crawling back." "Goodbye, Cora," I said. And I took my sleeve out of her hand the way you'd take a piece of lint off it. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. She hit the wood with the flat of her hand for a while and screamed my name. Then I heard her phone chime as it dropped off the network. Then nothing. Then suitcase wheels, rolling away down the corridor. I finished the bourbon. It was the best drink of my life. The aftermath ran on rails. Long paragraphs from unknown numbers, which I blocked. Her friends calling my work line to tell me she was hysterical, and that putting a woman out at 1 in the morning was unsafe, which it would have been. if she hadn't had somewhere to be. I told them exactly that and then blocked them too. It turned out I didn't need to leave Cora so much as I needed to amputate an entire social circle that had spent 3 years treating me as her utility bill. The rest I heard secondhand, and I heard it slowly. The way karma actually arrives. Not as lightning, but as weather. She went to Julian that night because there was nowhere else. Sasha had already changed the lock. So the great love turned out to be a 34-year-old man with a mattress on the floor of a studio, a bar tab longer than his lease, and a habit he'd hidden well over text. The fantasy survived 4 months of typing. It did not survive 9 days of sharing a bathroom. He put her out before the month ended. She'd quit her job in the spring, by the way. Told me she wanted to freelance, that we could afford the runway. We could. I could. She'd been building the runway with my money while planning her landing somewhere else. Sasha sent the screenshots to a few people who mattered. That took care of the friend group. An email came at the 5-month mark. The subject line was, "I miss my best friend. I need you to know I was manipulated," it said. He used my vulnerability against me. I see now that what we had was the real thing. Can we get coffee? I just want to hear your voice. I moved it to the trash. Not out of cruelty. There was nothing in me for it to move. She'd become a book I'd finished. I already knew the ending. 11 months after that Tuesday, I walked into a place on Ellis with a woman named Annika, a hospital anesthetist who says what she means the first time, and I gave my name at the stand for a table in the garden with the lights strung over it. The woman holding the reservation book looked up. She was thinner. Her hair was flat and grown out at the roots. She had a name tag on and a pen behind her ear, and she looked tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. "Hi," Cora said. "Good evening," I said. "And I meant it the way you mean it to anyone at a host stand." She looked at Annika. She looked at the reservation. She looked at the garden behind me with the lights on in it, and she worked out where the table was, and I watched all of it land at once. "Can I?" she said. "Could I just talk to you for a second? Outside? I've changed. I've done so much work. I just need 5 minutes." The lights in the garden were on. Somewhere behind me, somebody laughed at something. "No," I said, "but 3 years." Her voice went up and heads turned. "You can't just erase 3 years. Doesn't it mean anything that I'm sorry? I only wanted to see what he wanted. And I said the only true thing left between us. You found out." Then I took Annika's hand, and we followed the other host into the garden, and I didn't look back at the door. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with our upcoming stories. Your support means the world to us.